Hey guys, how's it going? It's Kara here with another Honkai Star video. And in today's video, I want to talk about self-modeling resin and give you guys 4 options on what I think you can use this on. Because I think this is an incredibly rare resource, probably the most rare resource in the entire game, super impactful, that luckily free to play and spenders can get. And how you get it, if you guys are not familiar with what this is, it's at level 40 of the battle pass. You get this right here. And what it does is it allows you to pick, when you're crafting a piece like a relic, that you get to choose the main stat of that relic. And I think this is really cool. And this system of gearing is very popular in a lot of different games. And this is the first time I've ever seen something like this in one of these games. And I think this is an amazing quality of life thing for this, because finding that specific piece of gear sometimes is a big pain in the ass and you'll just never end up rolling for it. So this at least makes it a little easier. So you can guarantee the primary, but there's a lot of other things to consider here, which we'll go over in this video. How this works, just to give you guys a rundown if you guys are not familiar, is in the synthesize section of the game, you can actually synthesize specific pieces, whether it be the head, hands, body, or feet, or the planar sphere or the link rope. But how these pieces of gear work is there's a random potential of the primary stat. So for example, the head and hands can only be HP flat, the hands can only be attack flat, but then this is where it gets to be the point of where you would want something like a self-modeling resin, is because look at all these different pieces here. You can have up to 7 different pieces here, or 7 different main stats on the body, and then on feet, for example, you can get 4, and then it gets even more crazy when you go to the spheres, because these things, you can get up to 10 different potential main stats. So you can really start to see why it's difficult to be able to land exactly what you want to land. And what this does is when you are about to craft, and it takes 10 5-star pieces, you crunch them in, and then normally when you're crafting to something specific, when you do that, it's just going to be a random roll of the head, hands, body, feet. You know, just random roll. You don't get any choice, but you at least get to pick the specific set bonus that you want, the specific set bonus and the specific sides of it. Like, so you want like a headpiece and you want it to be a band of sizzling thunder, you get to choose that. But for example, if I want a body, I don't know which subset I'm going to get. So then you have the self-modeling resin to be able to target in and click, I want crit rate, or I want crit damage, something like that. And you only get 1 of these per battle pass. So that's like once every 40 days. So incredibly rare thing, very important you pick the right thing. So I have 4 potential ways you can go about using this. And so let's have that discussion starting now. So with the self-modeling resin, I believe we have 4 good options that you can do, because I think there's no guaranteed move here. It's pretty subjective based on your account. And I'm just going to give you guys my argument for each way to go. And then you can make your own decision on what you want to do for your account. And also I'll tell you guys what I ended up deciding to do for my account and why I think that was the move out of these 4 options. But I think these are all good. And if you ended up going this way, I think this is totally fine. This is an incredibly rare resource that I just want to give as much guidance as possible, because this is something that you can only get once every like 40 days or something. So, and luckily it's for free to play and for spenders, which I think is really cool. I'm glad they didn't gate this to just spenders. So the first thing is, or the first option is choosing a body piece here. And I think a lot of people are going to be doing this. I've seen just comments in general that a lot of people have gone this route. And why that is, if we look at these pieces, so the head piece is guaranteed going to be HP, flat HP, and because if we go custom synthesis here, it's just going to be HP, and then you can't even use it on that. Hands, it's going to be attack, whereas with body, you get a lot more options here. So compared to feet, you only get 4 options, whereas with body, you get all these options here. And some of these are going to be way more impactful than others. And I think a lot of people want their damage dealing character to hit really hard. So they're going to see, oh, okay, I finally get main stat crit rate or main stat crit damage. So that's a big deal. And I think a lot of people are going to want to do that, and which I think is totally fair. And this is a pretty, popular option. Seal is a very popular character that most people have pulled for. So going this set in particular for that, in Genius of Brilliant Stars, where you get the quantum damage and you also get the ignore defense on this, I think that is a pretty good choice. And let's talk about the second option here in a moment, and then we'll talk about the pros and cons, because I think they're very similar in both the pros and cons and also just the choice in general. So number 2 would be choosing something like this, where it would be a planar ornament. So the circle, in my mind, I just call it the circle. I call this the circle and I call this the rope. So the circle here, if we look at doing a custom synthesis for this, this is even more choices than the chess piece. So then we have 10, I believe, total on this guy. And then the options that you can have, I think a lot of people are going to be choosing Quantum for the damage boost, because it's going to be pretty rare to get the set you want and then also the primary you want for that. And then you're going to want to worry about the subsets as well. For damage characters, I think the secondaries are just as important as the primary for this. In the beginning of the game, this is like, 2 weeks on launch. So just having good primaries is going to make a massive deal on your account, but those secondaries are really going to start to add up. And for something as rare as this to really target it, I think this is a good choice. And depending on who your main carry is, whether it be, in most cases going to be Seal, if you saved and going to get the next character, lightning damage boost, for example, I think these are all good. But now that we have these two choices, I think they both have quite a few cons to them that are worth noting. So the first one is going to be, if you choose this, like let's say you choose the quantum damage on the planar sphere, or you choose crit rate on the chess piece here, on the body piece, you have to really worry that you're going to roll. Not only do you need an RNG for the substats, but then you got to hope that they're good. So like attack percentage, crit damage, all those things that are not the main stat. So you chose crit rate, then you have to worry that you actually hit those good substats. Then you got to worry that you actually land multiple rolls of those substats to really be happy about this piece. You can argue, because of how rare this is going to be and how impactful those secondary subsets are, that just in general of farming, if you happen to find one with crit rate, but then you have good substats, it's going to beat out needing it to be that set bonus. For example, if I, let me see if I could kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So if I go to a character and I just so happen to find a relic here that is offset, but it's just like a really good roll. Like imagine this crit damage, and it has attack percentage, crit rate. It has all the things I would want on the piece, but it's not the right set. I feel like in this case scenario, because it's so rare and because those secondary effects are so impactful, that I might be okay with taking an offset here because it's actually going to increase my damage. And using something so rare that is so contingent upon other things landing is a problem in my opinion. And then we also got to factor in, so let's take that same logic for the quantum boost, because I think on the circle or the sphere, that same thing. For example, on my seal here, let's go to my relics. I ended up getting, attack percentage here, but it's on the defense, this version, where it's just not ideal. I think the best one is going to be the 12% attack and then an additional 12% attack. I think that is the way to go for damage dealers. And then I have this one right here. I have quantum on a max HP, but look at the roll though. It's quantum damage boost, but crit rate and crit damage. So I'm okay with not being suboptimal on my set here because I rolled crit rate, crit damage. I'm totally okay with that. And what if I even got more lucky and I roll even more crit rate and crit damage? Like this is going to be the way to go in my opinion. And it's just so hard to hit, not only, even if you're guaranteeing that I get the quantum damage boost on the right set, I still got to worry about attack percentage, crit rate, crit damage, and all that. So I think this is an example of I'm okay with taking a suboptimal route here because I got good substats. So it's like eventually you're going to hit something like this and hopefully you get the right substats on it. But that is a big risk of targeting something like this when it comes to damage, because those things really add up. You need to be really well geared for your damage dealers to hit as hard as you would like them to. And then the next thing is going to be the value of farming that node, because over time, this is really going to start to add up. So if I'm going to be spending 40 energy, and this is something that, you get only a couple of these shots per day, like let's say 4 or 5 shots per day with your daily energy, and we look at what we're going to be farming here, we got to figure out what's actually good value and what's not good value and determining which one's better, because you could look at it on the face value and be like, okay, the body piece, there's like 8 options, so it's better to go with the planar sphere because there's 10 options. That's more rare, so I'm going to go with that. But if we look a little further into value of your energy, it might not necessarily be the case, because if I go and try to farm it here, you have 2 options. You have the simulated universe, where this one World 3 is a fantastic node when you could get to here, like the level 2 version of World 3, because not only is it giving you this set where it increases the attack by 12%, I think that this one is the best set. So the Space Sealing Station set is the best for your damage dealers. And then this one, the Fleet of the Ageless, is the best for your supports because it increases the wearer's max HP by 12%. And then when the wearer's speed is 120 or higher, all allies' attack increases by 8%. So that's incredible for your supports. So you get super good value from this set. But let's look at if I wanted to increase the gear of my seal and wanted to go that quantum route. We go down to Cavern of Corrosion here and look at this great set. Obviously you'd want to do this, but it's so pigeonholed to just, at the moment, 2 characters. And that's one problem when it comes to this set. But then the other problem is you're farming this one, which is a pretty lackluster set in my opinion. So yes, you get more options and more potential variants in your circle, but then you have so much garbage you're going to be getting with this, and it's pigeonholed, that the value of farming this node is way worse than farming this one. So between these 2 options here, if these were the only, out of the 4 options that I have for this video, if these were the only 2 options, I would probably pick specifically for seal. And this changes based on whatever damage dealing character you want to go with. Even if you want to like boost up your damage dealing character on this set, I would go with the piece here. I would go with the crit rate out of this, because I'm happy to farm this one because this is just the best value anyway. I'm going to be getting both of these, you know, and I'm going to be, and they're generic too. That's the important thing. Not only is it 2 good sets, but they're generic sets that apply to everyone. So that is another reason why I'm happy to farm this, even though it's more rare to get the quantum primary on there. So between these 2, I just want to give you guys more things to consider on value wise before you pull the trigger on something like that. And then just keep in mind that even if you do this choice of going the route of getting the quantum one, just know that it's stuck on seal. Like it's just gonna be stuck there, you know, way down the line. Maybe like Silver Wolf, for example, you know, but she's kind of like a support character. I don't necessarily think that she's gonna care about that kind of stuff. Just know that these choices are very locked into just one character. And then now let's talk about, now that we have the pros and cons there between those 2 options, and I think both of them are good options. Like you didn't make a mistake in my opinion if you chose that. I just think these are things to consider before you pull that trigger. And then let's talk about number 3. And this option would be speed boots. So this feels like I'm kind of being hypocritical, because I was just talking about those 2 other pieces where it's like you have all these options. So like on the body piece, you have all these options to choose from on the custom synthesis, and then on the planar sphere you have all these options to think about. But if you go to the boots, there's only 4 options on a boot. So like let's go back to this one, and then if I go to feet and try to choose, there's only 4 options here. But this is something that we can't know for sure, but it just feels this way, and multiple people talking about this, that speed is incredibly rare on a primary stat. And on my account, anecdotally, I've only ever pulled 1 speed boot throughout the entirety of me leveling from 1 to 45. I've never pulled it, period, from all the farming I've done with this. And just 1 epic boot has rolled primary speed. That was it. And most people, just from the comments, we don't know exactly what those rates are going to be, but speed is just an incredibly rare stat. And also speed is incredibly impactful stat. So that's one of the reasons why I went with this. This was my choice. I ended up going with speed boots because they're incredibly rare. They're incredibly generic. You could put them on a lot of different characters. And it's just a very net positive thing, a very easy impact. And then lastly, they're not secondary stat mandatory for them to really be good, in my opinion. I think the thing that really matters is going to be the primary set of speed. The secondaries obviously do have an impact, but even if they roll complete garbage, I'm not that upset by it because speed is so impactful. Whereas the damage ones, you can end up breaking a set because the secondaries are so impactful. Like let's say I chose this body piece here. I chose crit rate. It rolls no damage substats, but then I end up rolling on a random off stat, like where it's like not specifically this set, but it gets attack percentage, crit damage, break effect, and it rolls crit damage multiple times, maybe it rolls attack and crit damage multiple times, then I'm going to just break the set and choose that piece. Whereas with speed, if I roll another speed set and it has better stats, I'm just going to now put that speed boot on multiple characters. Because we need 8 characters or 4 teams, and a lot of them are going to want speed, mainly your supports. That's another thing. Like if I get another speed boot, I'm just be like, dope, I got another speed boot, you know? And then when it comes to damage dealing, yes, you're going to want more damage things, but it's so much more rare to find a god rolled body piece here or a planar sphere. And obviously you're going to want more of them, but just getting one in general with good substats is going to be a very long time, or incredibly lucky to ever get something like that. Whereas I could just guarantee something super rare in speed boots, which, you know, I can't say for certain just how much more rare it is, but it feels way more rare to get main set speed boots than it is to get these other things. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And then it's super generic. So I think the next thing to talk about when it comes to speed is going to be which set I chose. So if we go back here, I ended up going with Musketeer of Wild Wheat. This really doubles down on just being super generic and super good for a lot of different characters. I can move this around a ton based on who I want to use, based on what content I'm doing. A lot of this content, especially the really difficult content, is going to be break specific. And so I'm going to be moving around my supports quite a bit, depending on what I want to do. Ideally, I would just have enough speed for all of them. And then also ideally, I would rather just have specific sets for each one, but that's going to be something that I'm going to build over time. And I think the Wild Wheat set is a great foundation to build upon. And then as I go on later, the more niche sets are going to get more value. For example, you know, maybe I'll go like electric set for her. Maybe I'll go a nihility set for, or a imaginary set for Welt. But in the meantime, this Musketeer set is great for all characters, even for damage dealers. It's still very good. So at worst, you could do a 2-piece, and then ideally a 4-piece so you get the extra speed. I think it's just a really good set. So what I ended up doing, and I'll just show you guys what I actually rolled here, which was this guy, and I got 25 speed here. It rolled okay, even it could have rolled, you know, way better, but I'll take it. And this is something like, let's say I had these substats on a crit rate roll. It would feel terrible, in my opinion. But on a speed one, it's like, oh, I got 25 speed. That's super hard to get. On substats, you normally get 2 speed, let alone, I've never even gotten a substat of speed to ever roll and get more than the 2 or the 1 on an epic, for example. So that's another reason why I did this. And then I could put this on Tingyun. I could put this on Asta if I wanted to. I could put this even on a Welt if I wanted to, if I want to make him mostly a support, not necessarily a damage dealer. I could put this on my Natasha if I want her to be faster and get more heals and more energy, for example. There's so much I could do with this piece that I think that might be the move. And that is what I went with, you know, for this. And then most content's pretty easy. You don't need crazy damage numbers to be able to do it. I beat most content with this. The Memory of Chaos and all that, that's going to be the next thing we talk about, but that is me. That is what I did for the third option. I think this is a potential thing. You know, there's pros and cons of the previous ones, but this is what I chose to do. Then let's talk about the fourth option here, which is going to be just not using it. Just don't waste it. And let's just see how things play out. There's a ton of people playtesting. There's a ton of people really grinding some of the hardest parts of the game, which is basically just this. Then after the Forgotten Hall, you got Memory of Chaos. And the big thing I want to highlight about Memory of Chaos is that it's on a timer. You get the rewards every 2 weeks, I believe. So that is something to keep in mind, that most things in this game, the value comes from hitting certain breakpoints to be able to boost up your equilibrium level. Whereas this is going to be the rare thing where you're actually on a timer, so you might want to get stronger, get the rewards, it resets. So that's something to keep in mind. And that is the cost or the opportunity cost of you not using this piece, because potentially this is going to be incredibly subjective to your account and what you think you could potentially do. But maybe this piece pushes you to beat a couple of these levels in Memory of Chaos, and then you get those rewards and then it resets and you're able to do those rewards again. Whereas if you didn't use that piece, then you won't get those rewards, for example. So, but that's incredibly hard to say one way or the other. And then you also got to think, if in more time, people figure out what is the 100% best choice. They beat my arguments here. Then you waited and you get to choose whatever that piece is. Then you get that extra value there going forward. So that is the argument for wanting to just wait. And 99% of content in this game is incredibly, I should say relatively easy to the Memory of Chaos and Forgotten Hall. And this is going to be the true in-game stuff that you got to worry about. So if you just want to be able to beat everything else, you don't care about min-maxing super hardcore when it comes to Memory of Chaos to get those extra rewards, then there's really no harm in just waiting. You can do all the content with just the typical stuff you'll roll for without needing to have this hyper-specific roll that's going to be super optimal. So that's one thing to consider when it comes to this. I think this is the most boring answer, and I think something like this is exciting and people want to use it, but this is something that comes around once every like 40 days. So really optimizing it is probably going to be worth it going forward. So maybe waiting is the move. If you're not happy with any of those options that I gave you going forward and you're just cool with able to beat, for example, you just beat Simulated Universe, I think this is incredibly easy compared to being able to beat the those other parts of content in Forgotten Hall. So you could just do that. I think that's totally fair. But really what I'm curious about, like, these are my arguments. These are my 4 options here. Curious to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section, because I think this is definitely worthy of a discussion. Also, if you've already used it, I would love to hear what you ended up using it on. And it would be kind of interesting to have a dialogue on what you guys decided to use this on, because I think a lot of people are going to want to know what people, just to get a vibe of what people are using it for. And so with that, guys, I'm out of here. Peace.